So we got a lot of news to cover, so instead of trying to get through, trying to separate it out for three, let's go for two. And I also just want to say that I will likely do a video on the draft and my thoughts on the draft on Tuesday after the draft is officially completed. I may do two separate ones. One when the draft is completed and one for tonight's draft, but we'll see what happens. It really depends on how the news goes over the next couple of days. Either way, on Sunday, I will be doing a video on my thoughts and predictions for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But with that being said, let's get into the news and speak about the draft a little bit more. As I mentioned in the previous video, the Bloodline is listed separate in the draft selection, with Roman and Solo Sikoa available for draft on day one, which is tonight, and the Usos available for selection on day two, which is Monday. The Judgment Day is also listed apart as well, with Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio listed together and Rhea Ripley listed separately. The main reason why I think Rhea Ripley is listed separately is because Rhea Ripley is a champion, and that is the reason why they would list her separately. Because, hypothetically saying, the hypothetical situation is this, that if Rhea Ripley is drafted, then Rhea has to go to one show and Bianca has to go to the other. It can't be where Rhea goes to one and Bianca goes to one, and Bianca goes to the same one, otherwise one of them can't keep the belt. Meaning, one of them will lose the title to the other side, which means that likely the following, because also I just want to point out, the draft will probably not be official until after Backlash, so they could draft Bianca and Rhea to the same show, but then have Io Sky defeat Bianca or Zelina Vega defeat Rhea at Backlash next weekend. So there's that, but right now Judgment Day is listed separately, so it is entirely possible that the Judgment Day faction could be separated in the draft this year, which I think would probably be the biggest mistake WWE could make in the draft, or one of the biggest mistakes they can make in the draft, because the Judgment Day has been the most prominently featured heel faction in WWE this year, and has helped do wonders for Finn Balor. It's done wonders for Dominic Mysterio. It's given Damian Priest some action, some consistent action. It gave Rhea Ripley the stage to become more confident and comfortable with her character work, and I think the Judgment Day is the reason why Rhea Ripley's women's champion. The Judgment Day is also the reason why Dominic Mysterio is one of the more prominently featured heels in the company, why Finn Balor could be in contention for the World Heavyweight Championship. The Judgment Day has helped every member of the faction, and it is not time for them to break up the stable yet. If you want to break up a stable, the draft would be the perfect time to break up Damage Control. I think it would be a mistake, because I think you would gain more and put all the members of Damage Control in a better position if you allow them to feud and break up the stable like that. But if you want to break up the stable without having them feud, or if you want to break up the stable and only have 2 out of the 3 members feud, then doing it in the draft is the ideal time to do it. That is it for that is it for draft news, but also on the selection screen. Well, actually, that is it for major draft news. But as far as the selection screen is concerned, the former Madcap Moss is actually listed on the selection screen as Riddick Moss, not Madcap. I hated the name Madcap Moss. I thought it was something that when Baron Corbin and Madcap Moss went their separate ways, that it would have been something that WWE would have done away with because of the fact that it was his name under Baron Corbin and not going to be his name when he went single. But apparently that wasn't the case. And now WWE has him disappearing is going to have him off TV for a couple of weeks to try and allow fans to forget that his name was Madcap and look at him as Riddick Moss instead. I think it's going to take the opposite for him to be remembered as Riddick Moss and not Madcap Moss. By the opposite, I mean putting him on TV and having the announcers talk about him as Riddick Moss, not Madcap Moss. It would be the same if does intend on bringing Butch back as Pete Dunne. If you want to bring Butch back as Pete Dunne, then you have to put Pete Dunne on television as Pete Dunne and not as Butch, and allow people to know his name is Pete Dunne and not Butch. So you gotta allow people to know him as the name you want to remember. You want people to know him as opposed to think people will forget just because you take him away from television for a couple weeks. But either way, I'm happy that Riddick Moss is back as Riddick Moss and not as Madcap Moss, because I think Riddick Moss also has a bit more potential. Because ever since Riddick Moss had that cup of coffee as 24/7 champion, I thought he had potential. I thought he showed potential as 24/7 champion, and that WWE should have invested in him as 24/7 champion because he was somebody different. He looked unique. He looked different. He didn't look like everybody else, and he was a new name. He was somebody new. He was somebody fresh. Yes, that wouldn't have worked out because he ended up getting injured anyway, but the fact of the matter is, I'm happy he's back as Riddick Moss, and I wish him nothing but the best. Now, one thing that has been constant over the last couple of weeks is conversations about contracts. Because 2024 is the year where contracts, contracts are everything that anybody wants to talk about over the next couple will be everything that anybody wants to talk about over the next couple of months because of the amount of talent that have contracts expiring over the next couple of months. With Drew McIntyre, Becky Lynch, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, MJF, the list goes on and on and on about the talent that have contracts expiring over the next couple of months, over the next year or so. And, we just sit here and we wonder and we question who's going to resign, who's not going to resign, what's going to happen. I think the easiest way to put it is that WWE has the issue of Becky Lynch will probably resign with WWE because Becky Lynch is going to scale back her time in wrestling and go to Hollywood, more than likely. But WWE is going to look to sign some of AEW's key talent, which Hangman Page is in that category, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega. I think of the talent from AEW that WWE could sign, Kenny Omega is one of the few that could go to WWE just because Kenny may want to give WWE a shot before he calls it a career. That's it. Kenny Omega may want to give WWE a shot before he calls it a career. Do I think any of them will decisively sign with WWE? No. But do I think there's a possibility? Yes. Now we just moved to quick hits, and that is, right now, there's not much known about this rumored debut or return planned for Collision, but there's another major debut or return planned for Collision, according to the Wrestling Observer, alongside CM Punk, so that could be somebody like Miro or Andrade coming back at Collision, or the debut of Collision, or for Collision, whatever you want to call it. Or it could be somebody debuting. It could be Bobby Fish returning and joining alongside Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, or Roderick Strong. It could be a lot of things. It could be Goldberg. It could be a lot of things. There isn't much known about this at all, but what we do know is there's another debut or return planned. That's all we know. Speaking of potential, and that we don't know a lot, I spoke about this earlier this week, that Dark Elevation could be done. Well, Dark Elevation is not the only show that could be done, as AEW Dark could also be done. And the fact that AEW did not tape anything for Dark this week, and with Fight.tv speaking about the fact that their listing had AEW Dark Elevation as the final episode of the show, it seems possible that Dark and Dark Elevation could both be done as YouTube broadcasts, with the fact that in June, on June 17th, AEW is going to be bringing in two more hours of programming. So with the fact that they record Ring of Honor, Rampage, Dynamite, and now Collision, they may be wanting to do away with Dark and Dark Elevation with the infusion of 2 more hours of programming. Which makes sense, especially with the fact that from what I've heard, the viewership for both Dark and Elevation have been down, so doing away with those programs is entirely possible. Nothing is official at this point, though. Nothing is official at this point, though. Kota Ibushi right now is nowhere close to being willing to sign with AEW full-time. If he did stuff with AEW, it would be on a part-time basis. And as he has no intention of signing with a company full-time at this point right now. I will keep you guys up to date on that and Dark and the potential debut as we get more. Much like I will keep you up to date on Miro. All this information that I'm reading off right now is from the Wrestling Observer. Miro, there is no update. Miro is nowhere closer to coming back or reappearing on AEW programming. He's still gone. That's as best an update as I can give. The last bit of information that I will give in this video is at Resurgence on May 21st, New Japan Resurgence on May 21st, there will be a mini tournament to crown the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. Mercedes Moné will be a part of the tournament. It is a one-night tournament including 4 women. 1 from New Japan, 1 from Stardom, 1 from CMLL, and Willow Nightingale from AEW. I do apologize that the names from CMLL and Stardom are escaping me, but I do think that this may be a mistake, bringing in another women's championship, because the question is, and I will leave you with this, is the IWGP Women's Championship in a strong enough place where they can bring in another women's title? And also, is New Japan Strong in a strong enough position where they can bring in another women's championship, or where it necessitates it? If the women's division is not in a strong enough position where they can bring in another title, then I think this is a mistake. But I also think having too many titles is a mistake. That's just me. We also have the preview for Rampage to come, so with that being said, I will see you in the next video.